Hello, everybody. Brad Johnson here, and I'm excited to announce this interview that I did when I was in South Africa, specifically in the area close to Pretoria, I believe it was, with Michael Tallinger. So, Michael Tallinger was with our tour for about a week's time, and him and I connected very, very well. We have a lot of good common interests relating to what's going on. So, I wanted to share this interview with all of you so that you can share a lot more about what Michael Tallinger is all about. You'll also find more information upon his website, but I just want you to go ahead and enjoy this interview I did with Michael Tallinger. I had a wonderful time talking with him, and there's a lot of jaw-dropping information that he shares together with me. So without further ado, here is my interview with Michael Tallinger. All right, hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and of course, I have a special guest, Michael Tallinger, and we're here right now in South Africa and enjoying a nice hotel stay, and I've just had a really incredible few days getting to meet Michael and getting to look into more of his work and seeing how it's very much in compatibility a lot with what Adronos has been sharing. So Michael, thank you very much for being here, and I just wanted to know more about this research that you're doing as well too, talking about the Earth, talking about ancient civilizations. We've gone out as well too. We've seen giant footprints. We've seen ancient fossils. You've actually chosen one of the best places I think in the world to be, relating to mystery, phenomena, ancient civilizations. What really compelled you to do all this work with where you are and how this all came about?
Yeah, hi Brad. It's firstly great getting to know you.
You too. And
thanks for visiting South Africa and sharing this journey with me and those that are with us. It's always an exciting and a new adventure every single time.
Absolutely.
And just really great to get to know you better and what you do and Adronos and the information that you're bringing through. It's phenomenal, and it's already filled in a lot of gaps for me.
Yes.
In some of the channelings that you've been doing.
I feel that too.
Yeah. So it's great to be able to have you as some sort of an additional foundational support system in a way.
Happy to help.
Yeah. So it looks like our work does overlap, but then I guess anyone who is involved in this field of work, whether it's spiritual, whether it's conscious archaeology or conscious astronomy or whatever, it's all connected in the end.
Yes. Yeah.
We all seem to end up in the more or less in the same conclusions, and even if the conclusions aren't the same, then at least we're in the same area, and then we can discuss where we differ in our conclusions, and eventually we'll find that our conclusions end up the same.
And I think that happens as well too, especially if we're talking to people who are very new to this work. They come in and then we reveal all this information, and maybe they're just like getting headaches, they're scratching their heads and saying, well, how is this possible? Because there's always that resistance. I think the big resistance is trying to get people to kind of crack their shell and say, you know what, this is actually what's happening, rather than what we're being fed with the BS a lot with the media and all that. So being able to crack this shell and seeing what people are actually revealing here, what actually they're seeing, and how it can actually improve their lives, I think has always been the biggest challenge for the type of work that we're doing. So again, I know you've been talking to a lot of scientists over the years as well too, talking about your material, and really just that we've been fed so much lies from the day we're born. It's
spectacular. I always tell people, especially of late, everything we've been told is a lie. And I now not only say it, I actually firmly believe it. It is the substrate of every bit of research I do. The conclusion is that everything I've been told about this subject from mainstream education is a lie. Mm-hmm. So it's a very exciting journey to discover the new truths and unraveling what we deem to be the new truths, and finding the truth behind the truth, or whatever you want to call it. It's an ongoing journey of discovery, and that's what I find so exciting. Mm-hmm. And I feel incredibly blessed and grateful for the fact that I somehow landed here, that I was gifted this opportunity. I guess maybe I planned this very well from another dimension. Yes. To land up in this place in South Africa, mm-hmm. where we're surrounded by ancient civilizations. The evidence of the Anunnaki is unquestionable. Now that you're here, you can...
I saw that myself, felt it myself.
Exactly, you can corroborate that I'm not making stuff up.
No, definitely not.
And I've heard people say, Tallinger is making this up. He's, we're in the heart of the Anunnaki, ancient Anunnaki installations, the Anunnaki energy, the ancient gold mining, And then now the biggest discovery here are the fossils of the dinosaur-like creature, reptilians, giants. It's unimaginable what is lying and scattered across the mountains here.
I can't believe that too, because I was laying my eyes and you're saying, "Oh, Brad, these are all fossils." I'm like, "You're kidding me? What happened?" Like it was like raining down fossils everywhere. We're seeing it as we're driving by. We're seeing it left, right, and center. We're seeing these stone circles everywhere. We're seeing all of this history, and the biggest thing that comes into my mind is, why isn't the world investigating this? Why isn't this is littered? It's not like it's in some sort of cavern where you can't find it. It's everywhere. It's all over over the ground. It's over the hills. It's everywhere that you find. I can't wrap my mind and say, why aren't scientists coming here? Why aren't archaeologists coming here and seeing all this history that's right in front of your face?
It is a mystery. I'm completely boggled by the fact that 11 years after releasing the first book on this, I'm still the only person in the world, and especially in South Africa, researching, investigating the stone circles and the ancient ruins, and now the fossils. The fossils are a relatively new discovery, which is really the cherry on top for me.
Yes.
It's. I haven't even put a press release to the media out about that, nothing. And I guess I'm not sure how to play it. I'm not sure, because you've been in the museum.
Yes.
You see the fossils in the museum. It's very obvious, even to an untrained eye. You see that these are fossils. Was that your experience?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, you can see it. It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, and then walking up the mountains, once your eyes are sensitized to this, you start spotting them everywhere.
Once you understand what you're looking for, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that changes our perception and our comprehension of geology, and how geological formations come about, how certain rocks are not rocks, that they might be called Hornfels rock, but it's actually a body part that turned to stone. So petrification, when we talk about fossils and fossilization, we're actually talking about petrification, fossilization, transmutation, all at the same time.
Yes.
And the process by which it happens, which is what I share with the people when they come here, which very few people are aware of, how simple that process actually is.
Absolutely. And of course all the gold that is here in Africa as well too. It's like looking at a continent filled with gold. And the stories you've told about the gold everywhere, the veins of gold that are here, and the Anunnaki that of course were mining for gold. And that's what I was getting as well too, is when you were talking about this, I was looking at these pits and seeing this gold just being levitated up out of the sky and going into these big ships, these big machines as well too, these mining ships. And it all rings a bell about, a lot of this phenomenon happening all over the world as well too, with this ancient form of mining. And of course we've looked into that as well too, with the gold powder everywhere, piles of gold in ancient mining sites, and we're seeing that piled over Joburg and everywhere. It is crazy.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you, like, there's gold everywhere, what is going on here? So this of course has also been the topic of ancient mining and the Anunnaki and how they came here, and the slaves that were part of Africa as well too, doing all the mining and collecting it so that they can beam it up into their ships and all that. So that's been an incredible discovery as well too.
Well, what you filled in a few gaps for me. In fact, you've reminded me of some information that I've had for many, many years now and I forgot about. And that's the interesting thing, is like things that I learned 10 years ago or 11 years ago that I've already forgotten about, because there's so much more discovery to be made.
Yeah.
And every now and then I bump into somebody like you, and suddenly you remind me of stuff that I learned 10 or 11 years ago, and go, oh my goodness, I've got to come back to this. And suddenly you say something, I go, oh yes, I've got these pieces of the puzzle, and whoa, now I know where to put them. Boom.
It's likewise as well too.
And suddenly this one statement or one little thing, it's like, when I heard the fact that Ed Leeds-Kalnin was levitating the giant blocks at Coral Castle with ice cream cones, that was a critical moment in my life that connected so many dots and strengthened the chain of knowledge, filled in so many missing pieces of the puzzle, that leads to it literally is like a quantum leap of information that allows you to go to another level and then reach conclusions in other areas that you were very vague on as well.
Yes,
I love this journey of discovery.
Absolutely. And Ed Leeds-Kalnin, I've looked into his work as well too with Coral Castle. That was one of the interesting things. I'm going to go to Florida in January, and I was like, well, maybe there's a way I can squeeze that trip in, because I'd love to see Coral Castle. And of course, looking into your research, how it intersects together with Nikola Tesla, with what he said, with Einstein, the idea and the fact that Earth is still, that it does not move, and that everything else is basically moving around us. In that particular way, fascinated as well. And I was getting confirmation from Spirit as well too. Jonas was saying this a couple of weeks back as well too, that we are the center of the universe. It may not always pertain to your location, in fact it does. But it's also the idea that we're the center of all creation, and that's how it reflects here on Earth.
Yeah. And once again, let's remind the viewers that everything we've been told is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we've been taught by mainstream education is a lie. You've got to step away from that and start finding your own truth, your own research, your own information, and start plugging that into a new body of knowledge that will form you and reform you who you are as a human being, and elevate your consciousness levels.
Mm-hmm.
That will be and is always a unbelievable journey of discovery, a very exciting journey of discovery when you're able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, which you cannot do with mainstream education. It's impossible to put the pieces of the puzzle together because mainstream education, just like mainstream society, is compartmentalized.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot cross those boundaries because we're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've discovered here, what I've discovered here, are some of the fundamental structures of a comprehension of the nature of reality and then the laws of nature that intersect with this nature of reality around us, that the Anunnaki were using this technology hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago, as we've discovered in some of your channelings. Yep. Millions of years ago, there was stuff going on here, and about the giants, the fact that we got all these giants running around here millions of years ago, and what happened to them, and all their giant bones scattered all over. It literally takes our knowledge, everything that we've been taught since childhood, and turns it upside down.
Yes.
And suddenly, mythology becomes the true history, and the modern history books become the science fiction.
Mm-hmm. What I've always called it is there's the mainstream and then there's the true stream. And when you start going into the truth, it becomes the most unpopular thing. Because no one wants to really hear the truth because that's unpopular. But when we look into the mainstream, but what they feed us, well, that becomes popularized. So basically what we can say is that much which has been popularized by the mainstream media will always be the aspect of a beautiful lie. So really we're looking to the true stream, where it's absolute truth, but very few people know about it. Why? Because truth is unpopular. So we're working to make truth popular in that way of what we're doing. But going back into like the gold as well too, like with because the Anunnaki didn't just want gold, it was all about white powder gold. You want to talk about that as well too. The white powder gold findings with the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The white powder gold is obviously the big question, the big thing, the central theme of the Anunnaki presence here.
And that's the monoatomic gold.
That's the monoatomic gold, yeah. So many people that are wondering what the quest for gold was. It's not for the shiny yellow gold.
Mm-hmm.
And this is always the $1 million question, right?
Yes.
Everybody always wants to know this.
Yep.
Why are they obsessed with gold? And why do they want gold? Well, they don't want gold, the yellow gold. They want the monoatomic version of gold, the white powder of gold. And there's a lot of information about that I've been able to put together over the years, especially meeting people like David Hudson, who I met several times in Arizona when I first met him there on his home ground. And then he came to South Africa in 2011, did a conference with me in Johannesburg, shared a lot more information about his discoveries and what he did with MIT, the research that he did with MIT over several years, and the incredible discoveries they made about the properties of monoatomic gold. Mono means a gold atom on its own before it binds to another golden atom, so it becomes a solid gold atom, or AU2, which is its molecular structure. Mm-hmm. And it's just spectacular to realize how this monoatomic gold then takes us to a deeper comprehension of all of nature, and the monoatomic elements in all of nature, and how not only monoatomic gold is absorbed by the roots of plants, but other monoatomic elements creates the monoatomic element kingdom or an entire new universe that is happening in the soil and in the air around us as the plants absorb monoatomic elements and create a whole cycle of life coming through the roots, up the stems, and released through the leaves again, falling down to the ground and creating the toroidal cycle of energy with monoatomic elements. And monoatomic gold is just one of those, but obviously a very critical and important one when it comes to humanity, our history, and the obsession of the Anunnaki and the monoatomic gold. And obviously it leads to questions of longevity, prolonging your life, to looking after your health, healing, curing all disease, and very importantly, what many people are not aware of, is that monoatomic gold moves between dimensions. And this is what I believe is what the Anunnaki really wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted that monoatomic gold because it helped them to move between dimensions and become very powerful multi-dimensional beings, being able to go from this world to another world in an instant.
And that was what Egypt was all about as well too, was wanting monoatomic gold because they thought it was an elixir of life, and that could also represent the idea of multidimensionality as well too. So there's always been the people that are crazed about Ormus, with the idea of orbitally rearranged molecular elements such as white powder gold. I've actually tried it myself as well too, and it's very powerful. So this is again making a lot more sense, and it's not just about the actual deep golden color of gold that you find in tunnels and all that, but more so about the white powder gold, which is also residue that you find from crop circles that form as well too. They get white residue over there as well too. And mining sites, of course, we're seeing residual gold all over the place as well too.
So you mentioned the gold yellowy sand mine dumps that I've pointed out to you around Johannesburg, and therefore I often jokes, not I, but everybody says that Johannesburg is a city built on gold. Well, it physically is built on gold. It's built on gold. The highways through Johannesburg are built with the sand, the residue sand from the mining in the 50s, 60s, 70s when they started building the highways in Johannesburg. And it's built with mine dump sand, which is filled with gold. Today, they're processing all these old mine dumps because it's rich in gold. So they're disappearing very quickly, but they can't take the highways away. So the highways will forever remain highways built with gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was amazed when you were telling me this as well. This is all gold. This is all gold right here. There's piles of gold everywhere. Joburg is just completely covered in gold as well too. And it just amazes me how much gold there is in Africa. But I always got that vision as well too. When I was flying over Africa, I said, well, why is it feeling like a continent? It's made entirely out of gold. And I said, well, that's the heart. That is what the ancients could refer to as the sacred land. The idea of the gold running through the veins of Africa. And Adronis talked about it the other day, about Africa being like the heart of the planet, the true heart of the planet.
Yeah.
And so there's a motherly connection there. And of course, when you're seeing all these mining operations, whether it be through extraterrestrials or humans themselves, that the earth is just in so much pain from that gold being removed.
Yeah, Cradle talks about that very passionately, how it pained him for his whole life, seeing the earth being mined and the gold, especially the yellow veins of gold being ripped out of the earth. It's like ripping out the life force of the earth itself. But what is important to note is that human obsession is not with gold. We don't have an obsession with gold. Keep in mind, we inherited this obsession from the Anunnaki. So it's not that people have gone crazy about gold. It was imposed on us, and sort of we inherited it from the Anunnaki because of their mining and their quest for gold. And there was obviously a period where humans were allowed to acquire some of that gold. And once they were allowed to acquire some of the gold that always belonged to the gods, they were never allowed to have it. It became very, very powerful, and they were very proud of it, and became very valuable to the humans that weren't allowed to keep pieces of gold, and maybe they stole it and they were keeping it in hiding.
They saw it in a very physical way.
Yes.
Wealth, it was financial wealth.
Yeah.
But that's not what the gods were looking for. The Anunnaki, there was all about the multi-dimensional aspect of it, the longevity aspect of it, the immortality of it. And humans, again, were receiving the crumbs. They think, well, this is valued by the gods, so it must be valuable.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a one-dimensional approach of what God is.
Key word there. Anunnaki didn't use money, all right? The Anunnaki didn't have money.
They don't care about that. Yeah.
They don't care about money. The universe does not work with money. The universe is not a capitalist model.
No.
The universe is a contributionist model. The way that I describe contributionism in the Ubuntu book, for those of you that are not aware of it, please get the Ubuntu book, read about contributionism, because it's been confirmed many times to me by many channelings that contributionism is the system by which the universe functions.
That's it.
It's not me saying it, it's many other people saying it to me. Somehow I was gifted that information, and guess what? I was gifted that information while I was researching the origins of humankind, the Anunnaki, the quest for gold, when I stumbled upon the origins of money, and that's when I connected the dots and saying, oh my God, money was purely introduced as a tool of enslavement, while the Anunnaki and all these other beings were ruling the roost over the earth. They didn't want people to use the same kind of creative powers, so they enslaved humanity with money.
Exactly.
And we assume that gold is valuable and gold is money, and no, gold has got nothing to do with money. It's just utilized as a tool. It represents money today in a capitalist model, and it's traded in ways that is completely bizarre. It's got nothing to do with the reasons why gold was mined in the first place. And everything that I read about gold when I was studying the origins of humankind in the books about gold and the origins of gold mining is just absolute nonsense. People just make up these stories. Ancient people found the shine and the luster of and the allure of gold very appealing. Wow, really?
It wasn't really that appealing when I see it, so. But that's the whole idea, is like we are just bred on upon a lie, and we take that lie to the greatest extremes, and then there's extremes of something that's so corrupt because it's popularized. It's something that's, from visitors that we think, well, they value gold, so they must enjoy the financial aspects of it. Maybe it buys them things. Maybe it brings property to ourselves. So we have to make this one-dimensional approach of gold, and we're going to take it to the greatest extremes possible. So we'll make capitalism, we'll put all this stuff in it. And again, it's like I said, it's the popular decision that, again, is a beautiful lie.
And the key thing here, that the big picture that comes out of realizing how the Anunnaki mined Southern Africa, it's not just here. It is now very obvious and evident to me that the mining for gold and other minerals, but predominantly gold, is huge all across the world. And at the USA, for example, it just blows my mind. Once your eyes open and you start seeing the signs, like when you start seeing the piles of sand and yellow sand in strange and weird places next to rocky mountains, and suddenly there's a pile of sand next to a big rocky mountain, or down a valley, a river valley that is beautiful, and suddenly there's piles of sand that don't belong there, you realize that this gold mining has been going on right across the world on a scale that we can't imagine, because we constantly put things into the scale of, well, how much money do you have? How can I afford to mine on such a large scale? So it's the money thing that constantly trips us up.
Exactly.
How did the Anunnaki afford to mine the whole world?
What's the cost of their vessels and stuff like that? So yes, absolutely. And it's kind of almost like they laugh at us and say, well, look at these humans. They think that everything in that sense costs the value of gold or the value of finance, when that's not what it is. It's really the idea that they have had this abundant state of resources that have been brought forward even through their own states of contributionism as well too, that they've done for their society and all that. So we are, again, we've pedaled the wheel backwards, and we kept pedaling it backwards all the time, and now finally may at the point be that wheel can stop and start moving forwards by what a lot of us are doing here to help with that. But of course, we looked into Adam's calendar as well too. We did that today, and I was fascinated by it. I was even doing some measurements with Spirit as well too about the age of Adam's calendar. It was like 292,300 years old, so it's ancient. And of course, Jonas came through. He was talking about it being like a Stargate portal as well too, and like an ancient calendar where there would be arrivals, there would be Anunnaki coming together. And you also mentioned a very fascinating topic about the maidens, or the women that were there, and it was also gave birth. That would be the cradle of mankind.
The birth goddess is the first females that gave birth to the very early humans.
Yes.
That's what Cradle Mutwa told me the first time I met with him, and you confirmed that today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Jonas referred to them as maidens. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. The way that you confirmed it in your channeling today is very synchronous with how Credo put it, and how I've heard it in other channelings as well, and not necessarily understanding it. You gave it a lot more meaning today, which I really appreciate. So again, every piece of the puzzle keeps elevating the body of knowledge, and it brings it more and more into focus. It's not completely in focus, but it's a lot more in focus now than it was 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of the story involved androgyny, a lot of it involved parthenogenesis, asexual reproduction, where they would give birth to babies, and again, almost be like clones of the female, but the earth was at such a ripe energy where women could do that. But again, it's kind of like women/androgyny, but the babies would come together and they'd be like perfect clones of their mothers as well too. And this would continue for a certain time, until there was the talk about a certain mutation that came about, and that's what brought in the human male over time. So this too fascinated me. Like Jonas went into really great detail about the birthing of mankind as well too in Africa, how Africa in that sense has been the focal point to that.
So this again brings me to the point that I've started calling this part of the world around me, around my museum, the Stone Circle area, in all my pamphlets, in my PR, to bring some tourists, and so I can share this and also survive, obviously, because that's where I survive from, is showing people here around this beautiful part of the world. And unfortunately, you hear at the worst time of the year where everything is dry before the rains come a month from now and everything is just so lush and green. It's just so beautiful.
Yes.
But and I lost my train of thought completely.
Well, basically, yeah, looking into the idea of the parthenogenesis of Africa being like the cradle of life. And what I've discovered as well, too, is that we've had Lemuria and we've had Atlantis, and that Lemuria felt like it was the birthplace of the West, and also not Atlantis, and Africa was the birthplace of the East. And I feel like the two of them had a very strong association together with each other. Because if you look into the Lemurian civilization, they're Africans. So they have the African descent as well, too. They're tall, very tall, but they're all women as well, too. And they start off in that way as well, too. And then as I'm reflecting upon the site, it's the exact same thing. So to me, it feels like there was something of the West and something of the East that kind of coincided together. And maybe that had to do with portal technology that we're seeing as well. Yeah.
So this is why, just came back to me, why I refer to my place here as the true cradle of humankind.
Yes.
Because we've been to the cradle of humankind outside of Johannesburg, you know, the Stakfontein Caves, you had that experience there where they found Mrs. Place, or now it's Mr. Place, or Teenager Place, and Littlefoot, and now suddenly that's called the cradle of humankind.
Yeah.
You know, no human fossils or remains have ever been found there.
That's right.
So once again, it's a lie by mainstream media, mainstream academia, the mainstream researchers and archaeology departments at Wits University and so forth. So it should be officially called the cradle of hominid kind. There's lots of hominids there, but no humans. So I call my place here Stone Circle Lodge and Museum, and the tours to the Stone Circles and this whole area around me, I call this the true cradle of humankind. Because we have physical evidence of people living here 300,000 years ago. It's not rocket science, you can see it everywhere.
Yes.
And now we have the fossils as well. So
I mean, the stone circles themselves could be a million videos in one as well, too, because we've looked a lot into the stone circles and a lot of their potentialities as well, too, but also looking into the magnetron, which you were talking about in the presentation today as well, too, and how we all have that in the microwave, right? We can turn that into a deadly laser beam if we needed to, if we have that technological know-how as well, too. Now, that, again, has been utilized a lot in the ancient societies as well, too. We're seeing that in Sumerian, we're seeing that in Egypt as well, too. What can you tell people about the magnetron who may not be familiar with it?
the magnetron is one of the key moments that opened up the gate to this incredible knowledge that the ancients had advanced technology. It's when I discovered the stone circles, obviously millions of them, and then thousands of them are in the shape of magnetrons. A magnetron's a very distinct flower shape. So you got like a circular structure with a central circle, and then anything between 4 and 8 little circles around it, literally like a flower petal. So we call them flower-shaped stone circles. Well, I didn't know about magnetrons until I got an email from an electrical engineer very early in 2009, and he said, look, some of these stone circles look just like magnetrons. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, you're right. And then a penny dropped.
Yep.
Not only are the stone circles generating energy from amplifying the frequencies of the earth,
Yep.
and the cymatic patterns create the amplification device themselves. That's very simple technology. But now you take the frequencies of the earth coming out and you build a magnetron on top of it. That means that the frequencies are now going into a giant magnetron. This is unimaginable amounts of energy. When a tiny little magnetron like this can literally blow things up and create incredible energy in a microwave that can heat things up to thousands of degrees, actually, if you know enough about it. A magnetron built out of quartz, crystal and stone, the granite stone and quartzitic rock, that's 50 meters in diameter, a magnetron that size. I've been told by 2 separate magnetron scientists, one in Glastonbury and one in Boulder, that a magnetron that size, just one of them, will generate more energy than all the power plants on Earth combined. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's a great statement to have gotten from magnetron scientists that have built magnetrons and actually used them.
So what would they use the magnetrons for in the ancient civilizations? Have you got an idea about what that would be used for?
I've got a feeling that whatever the energy was being used for, this giant energy grid, you've seen it now, it's just humongous. It covers all of southern Africa. There's probably more than 10 million of these. You know, I estimate by my calculations in my book that there are about 10 million of these, and they're probably more.
Yeah.
And this obviously collectively, because they're all connected to these channels, so every stone circle generates huge amounts of energy. So they were doing something with this energy. I suspect they were using it for mining gold, and we've already spoken how they use them for mining gold, that it wasn't just digging shafts into the ground. They were doing that too, but they were also just sucking the gold out in the center of these stone circles, and we have proof of that right now. I'm not going to go into the detail of that now, that's for another episode, but they were sucking out the gold of the center of the stone circles, and then literally just sucking it up into the sky, just like cowboys and aliens.
Exactly, right. And I watched that clip as well too. They're sucking up all the debris up there, up into the ships as well too. So.
And so they were using the giant energy grid, that's what it is, the stone circles of southern Africa. They're using it for gold mining, sucking the gold up, and also I believe for terraforming and geoengineering and creating an atmosphere, a habitable atmosphere that they could inhabit on the earth. And because possibly there were things going on that were depleting oxygen or whatever, and the stone circles were also constantly feeding the atmosphere so that the atmosphere stayed healthy and rich for the survival of the Anunnaki and other creatures and other beings.
Yes, I agree. Because there's a lot of theories in regards to like what they've done with chemtrails. If you actually do it with monoatomic elements, you're refreshing the planet. You're actually rebuilding, and that's like the new terraforming that you're talking about. And now they're trying to terraform with chemtrails, which is almost like spraying pharmaceuticals in the sky with everything that they've been doing with chemtrails. So being able to see that idea as well too as a terraform, it's almost like everything is just almost instant manifestation if you were to put all that together, right? Because gold is so receptive to enhancing your manifestation abilities, making you multidimensional, giving you longevity. So imagine what that is like. And so again, this is probably their idea of saying that we get gold because this is going to help us to kind of create our own planet, create our own reality, create our own universe as well too, by being multidimensional, having longevity, having all these abilities that unfold as well too. And I've talked to a lot of people who have tried Ormus, and of course their manifestation abilities go through the roof. They're just able to ask for something, and poof, and it just shows up more quicker than they could ever possibly imagine. So there's again a clue there relating to what these quote-unquote lords of the sky have done in the past relating to us. But of course there's also been the discovery of giants as well too, and that's what we're going to look at tomorrow, is the giant footprint. And of course I saw a giant footprint fossil just the other day as well too, showing that to you. Adronis also talked about giants, and that how there are some friendly giants here as well too. They're kind of like guard dogs of the land, as I called them, because I was getting a vision of like ships laying down and like these giants like coming running at them, like just ready to bash them to bits if they didn't leave, and they were like flying away. I could see these visions as you were talking about the giants and all that.
Yeah.
So the giants themselves are a great commodity to the idea of understanding our ancient history as well too. That there were giants on the earth, and they ranged from all different types of sizes. What have you discovered with the idea of the giants?
Yeah, the giants is a huge new chapter to this research and this discovery. We now have physical evidence, so I'm not just saying it because I think so, because I've read it in some book. Yeah. You've seen the giant fossils, bone fossils of giants, large beings that were up to 100 meters tall. And there were giants even bigger than that if we read, Book of Enoch and so forth. But so far I've found fossils and evidence, fossilized evidence of these giants that would suggest they were probably about 100 meters tall. I have not yet found anything bigger than that. Yeah. I might have seen it, but I haven't computed that this is a fossil of a giant bigger than that. And again, because we can't compute it, because the organs of a giant are mile high. Because the Book of Enoch says the giants were about a mile high. 3,000 ells, that's what the Book of Enoch says, and 3,000 ells equates just to about a mile, maybe a bit shorter than a mile. And any part of a giant that's a mile high, even the tip of a little finger, is just a huge bone. So we can't even compute it. So when you have a bunch of bones that remain, and some of the muscle that have now fossilized of a mile-high giant, we can't compute it. They will look like mountain ranges, they'll look like hills, and many of these fallen giants that were that big, that then the meat and the flesh starts to rot, obviously. The rotting meat forms crevices and caverns and cavities. And then what happens? Then the flood comes, covers everything in mud, and a bunch of lightning strikes, and all of these giant body parts turn to stone. That's the basic, very simple process of fossilization, and specifically the process of petrification. You've done it, I'm sure anyone that does research does this. and I've done it many times. I always kick myself. I find a bit of new information and research, and I get so excited about it, and then I think about it, I compute it, I put it, and I start imagining how it now affects and activates all the other bits of information that I have, and then I carry on and I do more research, and then I close that website or close the page, and I'm so excited I forget to copy it or save it, and then I can't find it again.
Yes.
And I found such a script recently, a few years ago, probably about 2 years ago now. Some ancient culture has the creation story of the earth as the original earth was like a giant sandpit, playground of sand. And what we shared today about galaxies, solar systems being formed out of water and silica dioxide crystals, which is sand, right? So suddenly these people are saying, this ancient civilization says that the original world was just like a giant sandpit playground, and there were 144 giants about a mile high that played in the sandpit, and they pushed the sand together. They literally, like children, played in the sand, and they made canyons and castles and things, and then they died. They fell over and became part of the landscapes. And I thought, wow, what an amazing story, because as you may or may not know, there are many mountains around the world that are called the sleeping giant, or the wounded giant, or the fallen giant.
Absolutely. Even the movie Moana shows a giant turning into a mountain at the very end of the movie as well too. So I'm seeing all these like synchronicities coming together with giants. And of course we've looked into like the toroidal fields pertaining to the toroidal field stones and to the cones as well too. And the capabilities that you can do. You can move mountains with that particular power as well. Yeah.
So that's, for me, I believe, probably the most exciting discovery here is the millions of stone circles, clearly ancient technology. We know they're machines, but finding the cones, the cone-shaped tools, that was something that I came up with that's my gift towards my contribution towards archaeology and discovery. Cone-shaped tools. Everyone's been missing it. They show pictures of it, but everyone ignores it. So when I started collecting these cone-shaped tools, I just instinctively knew they were going to become very significant. Then the toroidal stones, or the torus stones, the donut-shaped stones, and by now some of you may be aware of the donut-shaped stone that I took to Nassim Haramein in Hawaii in 2013 that crashed the TSA security system in Qatar, Doha, Qatar airport. And we now know how this ancient technology works. It is very clear, very obvious. Toroidal stones, torus stones that generate huge amounts of energy. The cone-shaped tools that focus that energy into Caesar beam technology. We have the fundamental comprehension of the laws of nature, and then giving us the tools to manipulate these laws of nature. So this is spectacular.
That's powerful. And imagine if we all had that as a responsible race, what we could do on the planet as well too. Well, Michael, again, it's been such a great pleasure talking to you with this interview. We got so much juicy stuff in this interview as well too, so I can't wait for people to see it. Tell people about how they can reach you, and tell them about Ubuntu as well too before we wrap up.
Yeah, so you can reach me. Go to michaeltillinger.com and read all about on the news page and so forth. You can also sign up to my news channel, my new video channel. Go to michaeltillinger.com. On the top right-hand corner, you'll see Join Michael's video channel. And that's a brand new channel I launched in 2019. And every week you get a new 20-minute episode of the research and the activity going on and the discovery in the mountains and the stone circles, the ancient ruins here in Southern Africa and beyond as well. There's interviews on there. They're all bonus and all complimentary stuff on top of that. And a whole archive of old material, my lectures from over the many years. That's all on this new video channel. So it's an ongoing, growing channel of content for those that are really interested. And also, if you want to support me in the Stone Circle Museum, as you know, you've seen the museum. It's a real thing. And it's a beautiful new structure that'll be housing the very precious tools and artifacts. It deserves a world-class museum, so that's why I've built it. But I need constant funding and management fees to keep this going. Museums like this don't survive by selling tickets at the door.
Yes, exactly.
So museums like this only survive with a kind support and generous support of its patrons. So if you like what I'm doing here, if you want to support this, please support me in keeping the Stone Circle Museum going by becoming a patron of the Stone Circle Museum.
Yes.
And that way we can grow the museum, we can have a curator there, we can put out beautiful displays, and we can continue the research and the protection of the Stone Circle ruins,
Absolutely.
which is part of it, really.
Absolutely. So you can check out Michael's video website. You can check out his Patreon as well too, and of course there's Ubuntu that is again ongoing as well.
Yeah.
So again, lots of juicy information there on Michael's website, and of course my website is newearthteachings.com. And again, Michael, thank you so much. It was
Awesome.
really great to meet you and to have this wonderful interview with you as well too. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait again for people to look into your work, or maybe seeing you for the first time. You're in for a thrill ride. So thank you so much. Take care, and maybe well. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Brad, for having me on this discussion with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And again, you can go ahead and check out Michael Tellinger's website as well as his Patreon. Also talks about his Ubuntu movement as well too. I want to thank Michael Tellinger very much from the bottom of my heart for a wonderful interview, some very informative and revealing information. Him and I really helped to kind of activate each other in many different ways throughout the tour in South Africa. So again, I'm very appreciative to him, and I hope to speak to with him again in the times ahead. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I'll speak to you all again in another perspective of the now. Take care.